Hey guys, what's up? I know it's been a while, I missed you, you probably didn't, but that's okay. I did all kinds of stuff, I traveled a little, I was sick a little, but all that is gone now and I'm back to writing and to filming these videos. And I wanted to kick things off with something which I believe is great sounding, made mostly for headphones out there. And if you are not picky as I am, then this could literally be your last unit driving a bunch of dynamic and planar headphones, and you don't need to sell your soul for one, so that's great. This thing is called xDuoo TA-22 and it's a DAC/headphone amplifier combo. This is not a solid-state amplifier, this is not a tube amplifier, but it combines both technologies in one single chassis. So it uses vacuum tubes to boost the voltage output and it uses transistors to boost the current output, and that what means to be a hybrid amplifier. I don't think it will win a beauty contest anytime soon, but at the same time nothing is really wrong with this build quality. It's solid, it's hefty, it weighs 3 kilos. It's made out of aluminum, it has tall rubber pads, rubber feet that will absorb micro vibrations coming from tubes and transistors. Its volume knob is not wobbling at all, so in the end I do believe that its build quality is great, but it really depends on who you ask. It feels like it has a linear volume control, it's a stepped volume control at the same time, it has 100 steps and it's so easy knowing how much power there is left on top. As for controls, you have 3 headphone jacks on its front panel, out of which 2 balanced connections, so 4.4mm and 4-pin XLR jack. You have a moderately sized LCD screen which glows orange, in line with its vacuum tubes. On its back you have your regular USB, optical and coaxial inputs, plus a Bluetooth antenna socket. You can see a pair of RCA and XLR analog inputs, and since it can work as a DAC or a DAC plus preamp combo, you can also see a pair of RCA outputs. As for tech inside it, I won't bore you down with too much information, but I'll just remind you that this is a hybrid amplifier that uses a pair of 12 AU7 vacuum tubes together with a bunch of transistors biased into Class A operation, very important, which draws power from its custom R-core transformer, which sits somewhere around here. And it's capable of providing up to 3 watts of power on its balanced output and half that power on its regular 1/4-inch headphone jack. I'm pretty sure that this one will sound pretty ballsy and pretty impactful, because 3 watts and Class A and hybrid amplifiers usually sound like that. It uses a pair of ES9038 Q2M mobile chips from ESS Technologies. Those are flagship mobile DAC chips, so it should sound pretty nice. It has 2 DAC chips and of course it has 2 double triodes, meaning that it's a fully balanced input to output DAC and amplifier, which is great. You can swap those tunes if you want. If you want a more technical sound, a cleaner sound, then you can go with current production 12 AU7 tubes. And if you want a richer, warmer, smoother sound, then nothing does it better than new old stock tubes. The older, the better. Alright guys, let's hit some eardrums and let's see how it performs. I'll describe this one mostly as a DAC/headphone amplifier combo, but I also tried it with third-party DA converters, much more expensive ones, and although the performance went up, personally I wouldn't use it with third-party DACs. I do believe that its internal DAC section is already good enough and it works just great with its internal hybrid headphone amplifier, which is balancing out its tonality. Its tonality is going just slightly on the warmer, on the richer side of things, of neutral, so it's not as linear or neutral like solid-state headphone amplifiers, but it's not as soul-grabbing like full-tube headphone amplifiers, so it's somewhere in the middle. The good part is that this one is a transformer-coupled headphone amplifier. It has a big transformer right here. It's an R-core transformer, so the vacuum tubes are pulling plenty of voltage from it. Its transistors are pulling plenty of current, meaning that your headphones will be fully juiced up. And although 3 watts doesn't sound like a lot of power, right? it's Class A power, so there is a lot more current in this one compared to plenty of solid-state headphone amplifiers, and you can feel that your planar headphones have a better control of the drivers. You feel that the bass is heftier, it's punchier, because this one is kind of a fun sounding unit. So it's not a very technical sounding, super detailed, but more like fun, engaging and alive, so it's that kind of sound. Although it's a hybrid DAC/headphone amplifier combo and it has a higher noise floor, it has more distortion. In reality, I didn't feel that there was so much less information to say at tapping A90D. It was still quite transparent. I could still focus on things happening in the background, although I was not doing it so easily as it happened on A90D, for example. So I do believe that it has a pretty good sound in terms of pretty clean sounding, very tight kind of sound. Its treble is not rolling off at all. It has plenty of shimmer and detail on the treble, but it doesn't have any kind of extra ringing or, you know, sharpness, strong leading edges. It cannot provide you that, but at the same time, I do believe that it sounds pretty detailed. It can be compared with entry to mid-level DA converters, so I do believe its DAC section is more than good enough. Man-Made Object by Go Go Penguin is an exceptionally sounding album because it can go fast, it can be slow, it can be on stage, it can be really big sounding, and that is a super interesting album via headphones, more interesting than versus loudspeakers, because you have these, you know, drivers sitting right here and still the sound is going something like that. You know, it's putting you on stage or it just expands the soundstage. And TA-22 was doing that pretty easily, not only with open back headphones, but with closed backs, with IEMs, something that was not happening, for example, with solid-state, you know, mid-range solid-state headphone amplifiers. So clearly it's pretty good with the soundstage, it's pretty good with the depth. It won't challenge the biggest tube amplifiers out there, but it will easily challenge solid-state amplifiers, even pricier ones, pretty easily in terms of scale, depth and imaging. This is quite a linear sounding unit, but I cannot deny that I'm hearing a slight boost in the bass, a slight boost in the mid-range, and the treble is exactly as powerful, but you don't feel that brightness, you know, that treble edge. So it works excellent with half-my headphones, it worked excellent with RZH-made headphones, it was able to drive them fully, something that usually happens with bigger amplifiers. When it comes to sheer power, this thing was driving the Meze Elite, Keneton, Rockner, RZH Charybdis, Odyssey LCD5 at 50 out of 100, so leaving a ton of headroom on tap. With Sennheiser HD800S and Odyssey LCD4, I was arriving at 70 out of 100, so again, plenty of headroom was remaining on tap. The only headphone that demanding more power, arriving at upper power limits, was Halfman Susvara, and to my surprise, it was not distorting at all at full power. Bass was pretty present, it was pretty punchy sounding actually, and while Susvara weren't really fully driven, everything else, every single headphone that I have was fully driven, and this is not a joke. It was able to drive them fully, even planar magnetic headphones. Everything sounded alive, punchy, very dynamic. Personally, I like this kind of sound a little bit more compared to solid-state headphone amplifiers sitting in the same price bracket. Mostly because it's bigger sounding, it's airier, it's deeper sounding, but it's also meaner sounding and punchier sounding as well in the bass. It's a little bit more elevated, but you know, lately I like this kind of sound a little bit more. It's just more fun sounding listening to this one. And although it provides just 3 watts on paper, you know, it easily drove my entire headphone collection. And if you want to drive a bunch of headphones, then this one will do it pretty easily without murdering your wallet for good. My buddy David from Prime Audio Reviews reported a higher noise floor not only with IEMs but also with a few desktop headphones, and since noise floor is very important to me, I'm basically adding it in all my amplifier reviews, be them written or video reviews. I decided trying this one with all my desktop headphones, portable headphones and IEMs. And except for 3 IEMs, which were FH9, FH7S, and another one which I don't remember, This one was pretty much noiseless, even via high gain and 4.4 balanced output. With those three IEMs, I've got just a barely audible hum, like a white noise when I was attaching and detaching those IEMs. But apart from that, everything else was pretty much noiseless. I have two very sensitive desktop headphones, which are Apos Caspian and Canyon Valley, having a sensitivity of 110 dB per single milliwatt of power. And again, it was pretty much noiseless via balanced output and high gain. So I can only presume that David got some ground loops, or maybe his vacuum tubes are arriving at the end of its life cycle, because tubes can get noisy and they can add distortion at the end of their life. That actually happened with my xDuoo TA-22. I got two units. The first one was very noisy and the second one was noiseless. And it seems that the tubes are doing that, so clearly maybe it got a fault unit, or maybe the tubes are dying. I don't really know. I removed that fancy power cable of mine and a passive power conditioner, and I connected this one directly to the wall, and again it was noiseless. So for me this is more than enough. So for me it works great with my desktop headphones. I don't use IEMs with overpowerful desktop amplifiers. TA-22 won me over mostly with its fun, impactful and fast attitude, with its transient response in 2 words. And if you checked any of my past xDuoo amplifier reviews, then you'll observe that all of them are more or less the same. These guys are very much into musicality. They don't care that much for technicalities, but when it comes to fun times, fast transients, impactful transients, for them all that is very important. There was just a single amplifier from their entire portfolio which was not like that, and that was TA-26, which was moderately thumping but not so fast sounding. This one is a very different animal, a much scarier one. It has a lot more power, it provides more current, and that is very important, especially for planar headphones, which need a lot more current to be controlled. You can feel that the bass is grippier, you can feel that it stops much faster in a way when needed, and you can feel that there is a longer sustain in the bass again when needed. So clearly it can provide plenty of current, and you can feel that the bass is punchy, impactful, but it also can stop exactly when needed. So in terms of transients, I cannot complain about this one. This is great sounding. This is better sounding compared to plenty of solid state amplifiers in the same price bracket. So it doesn't sound like a 489 unit, but like a more expensive one, especially when it comes to fun factor, power. All that is pretty impressive on this one. Bass and drum solo by Avery Gales is a transients festival in a way, because it goes from slow to fast and dynamics are going from cool to very hot. It should bring you a good dose of dopamine, it should bring you at least a few smiles, at least a few goosebumps. And with TA-22 I was getting exactly that. So this is a punchy sounding amplifier and there is no other way to describe it. The Soundstage and DAP are pretty good on this unit, so sounding always at an arm's reach, everything is pushed outside my head, but at the same time it won't really challenge those big, massive looping tube amplifiers. My Primavera is considerably bigger, airier and deeper sounding, but at the same time is by 10 times heavier and by 30 times more expensive, so there is no contest, that one is bigger, better sounding and so on, but at this price point I don't think you can do better. Compared to solid state amplifiers like Tapping A90D, like Singster SA1, like SMSL SP400, which are costing more or less the same, those are not as impressive in terms of scale. Soundstage sounding more like 2.5D, and this one more like 3D sounding. I was listening to a live recording, a local rock track with a soprano voice. I'll leave a link below. It's called Iris Ultimatum. And you have that lead guitar which sounds somewhere behind your back, which is a little weird. You have that soprano voice exactly in the middle, and you have the crowd singing with the band all around your head like a circle. And that is a weird effect because this is a stereo track and you have just a pair of headphones and still you can hear that circle all around you. And that was very apparent with TA-22. That was very apparent with my own tube amplifier, but with solid-state amplifiers that was not very apparent. So clearly these ones are doing a little bit better in terms of depth on Soundstage. The thing that was good, almost great, but not really outstanding was definitely the tail retrieval. I'm really glad that xDuoo went with those two ESS Sabre silicon, which counterbalanced some issues coming from the vacuum tubes. So adding a little bit of cleanness, adding a little bit of sharpness, but in reality the final outcome is a sharpness-free type of sound that is natural sounding without overdoing things too much. You can hear things happening on the background, but you won't get super defined leading edges, you won't get super defined contour of the notes. There is basically no sharpness to the sound, so this one is a very worry-free, easygoing, very relaxed type of sound. And although the transients are quite wild, impactful sounding, this is not an aggressive sounding unit, so this is quite a difference. I personally tuned my setup to be ultra revealing, but at the same time fatigue-free. And while this one is definitely a brightness-free, fatigue-free type of sound, on the micro scale, it will not reveal you all and everything. So a few things will still go unnoticed, and that's fine, considering its price point. Moving on to frequency response, its bass is a little bit more powerful, punchier, deeper reaching, and just ballsier sounding compared to a neutral tuned solid-state headphone amplifier like Tapping A90D. So it's bassier, it's weightier sounding, which adds more mass, which adds fullness to the sound. It's a less high quality type of bass, but more quantity wise, so it's fun but not really audiophile worthy. It's mid-range, it's moderately warm, it's quite smooth, but it's nowhere near as rich or juicy sounding like it was happening on TA-22. It's only moderately sweet, but it's enough to feel it natural or close to the real thing. Surprisingly, the trebles are not rolled off or smoothed out. There is plenty of vibration, there is plenty of information. Everything is sparkling with live up top in the upper registers, but I'm not getting the usual, brightness and listening fatigue, which will make a lot of Headphone users very happy about. As for my conclusions, these guys still don't know how to build some beautiful looking websites. No hard feelings there. There are plenty of things to improve upon, but still xDuoo is a brand which I respect, which I like, because they care for music, they care for sound quality, and they care for this hobby of ours. TA-22 is far from perfect. There is plenty of things to improve upon. It's not a noiseless sounding unit with ultra sensitive IEMs. It's not the cleanest or most detailed sounding DAC amp combo out there, but it always makes me feel great when listening to music. It always tries to put a smile on my face or just improve my mood levels in a way, and there is plenty of power on tap to drive pretty much anything out there, dynamic or planar headphones, making it a lot more than just a jack of all trades. This is pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching, thank you for supporting. This is Sando, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!